Can I ask also one of you to? Thank you. Excellencies, dear delegates, dear colleagues, it's now 10:02 Geneva time and we are launching this event. It's our pleasure to welcome you back here at the International Environment House and online for a chemicals and waste negotiations briefing organized within the framework of the Geneva Environment Network. This event brings together the secretariats of the chemicals and pollution main bodies to update member states and stakeholders on the advancement of negotiations and how coordinated action is taken to tackle the pollution crisis and advance the sound management of chemicals. 2026 is another busy year for chemicals and waste-related negotiations, as you will hear shortly. And many of you who were at the International Conference Center of Geneva last week experienced the challenges ahead of us. The chair of today's event is Mr. Rolf Payet, the Executive Secretary of the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions Secretariat. Before the Executive Secretary formally welcomes you with the heads of other secretariats, a quick note to remind you that the documents presented, the summary as well as the video of the event will be made available as usual on the webpage of this event. For those who have joined us online, the transcript is also available in over 100 languages as indicated. And to raise your Q&A online, you can use the Slido tool and we will use them also to feed the discussion if time allows. With that, Mr. Payet, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Excellencies and distinguished representatives of the permanent missions based in Geneva, colleagues who are joining us online, good morning and good afternoon, and also good evening. Thank you so much for making time to join us today. It's a real pleasure for me to welcome you to our first, in fact, briefing in 2026 on chemicals and waste negotiations. And indeed, as mentioned by Diana, a lot has been happening since the beginning of the year here in Geneva. I would like to begin by expressing my heartfelt appreciation for the essential role you play here in Geneva in advancing our shared work, and for coordinating with the capitals, for helping us to facilitate decisions at the highest possible political levels, and also for supporting the work that we are doing here. So your commitment here in Geneva truly makes a real difference in our work. As you know, 2025 was an exceptionally active and dynamic year for the chemicals and waste cluster, with the COPs and several committees convening, while in 2026, for the BRS conventions, it's a year that will be focused on implementation and also busy and important period for our parties and partners. We have also already begun the year at full speed as we look ahead for the 2027 BRS COPs, which will be held and confirmed now in Panama City, in Panama. And here I'd like to thank the government of Panama for its host of the next BRS COPs. During this intersessional period, there is a significant work to come out to ensure that we can deliver on our program of work for the period 2027 COPs, which will take place, as I said, in Panama. Allow me to also highlight in just a few key subsidiary body meetings scheduled for 2026. We'll have the 15th meeting of the Basel Convention Open-Ended Working Group, OEWG 15, coming up from the 23rd to 26th of June, here in Geneva. This will be followed by the second meeting of the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee, which will also be here in Geneva from the 16th to the 19th of June. The 17th meeting of the Basel Convention Implementation Compliance Committee as well will be in Geneva over the same period just after. And the 22nd meeting of the Rotterdam Convention Chemical Review Committee will also be held in Rome, Italy in September. And the 22nd meeting of the Stockholm Convention Persistent Organic Pollutants Review Committee will also be held in September in Rome. I will not go into the details of these meetings, and I, of course, have colleagues that will present more details on those meetings. In addition, I would like to inform you that the 6th round of national reporting under the Stockholm Convention has been launched, and all parties are encouraged to submit their reports electronically through the electronic reporting system. available in all of the 6 UN languages. Please kindly note that the deadline for submission is the 31st of August, 2026. I'm also very pleased to share that Ms. Isabel Martinez has been appointed as the Deputy Executive Secretary of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. And many of you will know her from various roles within UNEP over the years. With more than 3 decades of dedicated service to the multilateral environmental governance and a career marked by collaboration, I'm very happy to welcome her as my deputy. Excellencies and colleagues, the work ahead will rely greatly on your continued leadership and coordination. Your engagement as permanent missions and official contact points will be essential for our next phase. And today I have the honor and pleasure to have colleagues from the various, from United Nations Environment Program, from the various other MEAs based here in Geneva, and they will be presenting to you their calendar as well as their expectations for this year. So let me once again express my appreciation and thanks to Jen for organizing this meeting, and of course to colleagues who are joining me here this morning for the presentations. So without any further ado, let us dive into the program that we have before us this morning. Thank you. Okay, to begin, let me see. We have presentations by Jacqueline Alvarez, who's the director, the chief of the Chemicals and Health branch of UNEP. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Rolf, and good day to everyone. This is the first briefing of the year, but it doesn't mean that it's the first briefing that you have received from our side, and I cannot agree more with Rolf that this is an implementation year for many, many different things. But also in the chemicals agenda, we are having very important moments in time. Last week, as you know, the first plenary of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution had its first meeting, and it comes from a member state's decision of UNEA some years ago, and after that, last year in Punta del Este in Uruguay, the moment where the panel was established formally. The first plenary was opened by our executive director, Inger Andersson, and the meeting started with adoption of UNEA rules of procedure. That is what we wished, but it didn't happen like that. What happened is that because the panel is really a very, very important element and structure within the governance, the environmental governance, the members of the panel wanted to make all the conditions stable, all the conditions known for everyone, and we started only with the chair's election. So Mr. Osvaldo Alvarez Perez from Chile was elected as the president or as the chair of the meeting. The plenary also elected by acclamation bureau members from 4 out of the 5 regions. And we have Belgium, China, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland as part of the bureau. The 2 other remaining seats are still under discussion by the group, and we hope to hear from them very soon. The plenary also decided that the term for those officers is of 2 years, and they agreed to continue and discuss the rules of procedure in a contact group. What do we have as statistics from the meeting? One of the most important things is that as of now, we have 129 members of the panel. We started with 97. So if you see the rate of interest is really huge. We got practically more than 30% of our member states to be showing their interest and wish to be part of the panel. We had around 550 people participating and attending, which is also not minor in the sense that, as you know, this is a panel that it is intergovernmental, but in any case, the representation of other stakeholders is really critical and very substantive, as we can see from the participation during the meeting. What are potentially the next steps? The president will be calling for a bureau meeting very soon, and they will be discussing what is the continuation of this very important panel. We have so far half of the rules adopted, of the rules of procedure adopted at REF, but we still need to work a little more on them. One of the most important elements of the rules in relation to substance is the interdisciplinary expert committee. And for that, discussions have not started completely, but the understanding is that that's at the core of the functioning at the beginning, and other policies or structures of the panel have not yet been discussed, and that includes conflict of interest, also a topic of great importance and relevance for the future operationalization of the panel. We are looking forward to keep on working with all of you in this process, and we will be informing when the next session will take place and where it will take place as well. So thank you. Over back to you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. And now I have the pleasure to invite my colleague, Executive Secretary Monica Stankiewicz, to address you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good day, colleagues, and thank you, Diana and Jen, for having us for this briefing. And probably when we met last time, last year, I mentioned the high prices of gold that leads to more mining and more mercury use and more releases of chemicals to the environment. So this year, these prices are even higher. And this is an example of challenges that we, conventions in the chemicals and waste cluster and agreements, have to face heads on. I will briefly touch upon the last year COP, which was presided over by Osvaldo Perez, the same president we had last week from Chile. And I must say that the COP in Geneva in November last year once again demonstrated the strong collective commitment of parties and stakeholders to address mercury challenges. And it was a success not only because of the decisions adopted, but also because of the constructive and collaborative spirit that guided the negotiations. Consensus prevailed and discussion remained smooth throughout the COP. And allow me to highlight 3 examples of agreements made. One is related to mandating the work to analyze the transparency and certification mechanism in supply chain that could help to reduce mercury in gold mining. Second was the agreement to phase out the use of dental amalgam globally, and this was an issue or is an issue that a few years ago could not really be agreed, but there has been such a shift and change in approach to the use of dental amalgam, also thanks to the great engagement of stakeholders on all continents. And the third indication of how well we are progressing is the broadening of participation of stakeholders at the COPs through the launch of the Convention's Women Caucus, the Youth Declaration, and establishment of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Mercury. So I believe also that this commitment is related to having a clear vision of what is to be achieved and which are the pathways to reach this goal. And this is prescribed in the legally binding convention, so everyone basically have a clarity on what must be done to address mercury and chemicals overall. One issue I would like to address during this today meeting is the importance of the GEF as a financial mechanism of some of our convention to support implementation. After all, COP successes are important, but even more important is that the implementation take place on the ground, and for that we need resources. And we see that there is even more emphasis in JEV to integrated programs, to have projects and programs that combine goals and objectives of multiple MEAs. And within chemicals and waste clusters, we have quite a good understanding which are the best ways to integrate and how to achieve best results. So we have been very active together with Rolf and other colleagues at various events and in replenishment meetings to share our perspective and knowledge in this regard. And one important aspect here is, of course, to make sure that such integrated programs and projects overall are well following the priorities set by our parties. And for Minamata Convention, one such a priority is linkages to biodiversity. And here I would like to bring forward for your attention one opportunity that is on our horizon, and that is related to agreeing in one of the subsidiary bodies of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Last year, there was an agreement reached to put forward a proposal to the COP of the Convention on Biological Diversity later this year to establish an ad hoc expert group on biodiversity and pollution, to come up with a guidance on how to address impacts of pollution on biodiversity. And if this recommended decision is adopted later this year, it will provide a mechanism for the even stronger interaction from our side with biodiversity agenda, something we have been pursuing already for some time already. So I'm very glad to see it coming, and I hope this will gain enough support from all parties to be adopted at the Minamata and the CBD COP. Apologies. I would like also to mention the second component of the financial mechanism of the Minamata Convention, the specific international program. This is a small grant program, and after successful launch of the call for project proposals recently, I'm glad to inform you that we have been already receiving quite substantial contributions from parties. And here I would like to thank Austria, Germany, France, Sweden, and UK for their support. And I would like to invite additional contributions. And lastly, I would like to mention we have just this week concluded a meeting of the effectiveness evaluation group. And effectiveness evaluation is another process that we do within chemicals conventions to have a check how the conventions are doing and what needs to be improved. Stockholm Convention has been doing it already for some time, so we are now following in your footstep, and I'm very glad to report that we are well on track, and recommendations on what's working well and where we see the impact and what we need to improve will be presented at the Minamata Convention COP next year, which will also mark the 10th anniversary of the Minamata Convention. So this input will be very timely to take a stock and reflect broadly, but also to guide our action forward. So with that rather positive note, I would like to conclude my intervention, and over to you, Rolf. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica, for this intervention. I now have the pleasure to invite Susan Wingfield from the BRS to present details of the upcoming open-ended working group of the Basel Convention in June of this year. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you very much, Rolf, and good morning to everyone. So I am going to present, as Rolf has mentioned, on the open-ended working group of the Basel Convention, which will meet for the 15th time this coming June. Now, this is an important technical subsidiary body of the Conference of the Parties to the Basel Convention. Basically, the meeting occurs midway between COPs. So it's the middle of the COP cycle. You'll remember that last year COP was held in ending in May, and then, as Rolf has just mentioned, we'll have our next COP in April. So really the open-ended working group is a good opportunity to take stock of the work that's been done intersessionally thus far to implement those COP mandates from last year, and then, of course, to put in place preparations in terms of the technical and scientific work, and of course, legal work as well, in preparation for the COPs next year. So just to give a snapshot of the particulars of the meeting. So we're meeting in June, 23rd to the 26th of June. It's a 4-day meeting. This is preceded by regional meetings, bureau meetings, which take place the day before on Monday, the 22nd of June. Venue, as always, is the CICG in Geneva. It's important to note that this time we'll have several back-to-back meetings of the conventions. These are the compliance committee meetings for the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm conventions, and you can see the dates there. We already have very generous donors who have come forward to provide funding for travel of participants to the meeting. We're also continuing to mobilize funding, and just want to note that France, Norway and Switzerland so far have generously supported the travel of participants. So I'll start actually at the bottom of this slide just to confirm that registration for the meeting is now open. We have an electronic registration system now, which those of you who have been to the last meetings of the COPs will be aware. Slightly different than the COPs. There's no need for credentials for this meeting. You would just need your registration to be accompanied by an official nomination letter issued by your government or a note verbal from the permanent mission. And deadlines, you can see there, we have the deadline upcoming for parties in early March and then observers in early May. So in terms of meeting documentation, just now jumping to the top of the slide, already the provisional agenda is available on the Open-Ended Working Group webpage. This will shortly be followed by posting of the tentative schedule and scenario notes for the meeting. This will be finalized after the Bureau meets in early March. So similar to other bodies, the Open-Ended Working Group does have its own Bureau, and they're expected to approve the tentative schedule, as I mentioned, in their meeting in early March. But we expect that the tentative schedule will reveal that the meeting will basically be flanked by plenary sessions. So as mentioned, it will start on the Tuesday. The meeting will start in plenary, whereby the main topics of discussion will be introduced over a 1.5 day period. It would then be expected by the Wednesday lunchtime that we would go into contact group sessions. And it's expected there would be 3 contact groups, 2 of which would run in parallel. And this would be on strategic, technical, and legal matters. So we really try to spend as much time as possible in those contact group settings because, as mentioned, this is really very much a technical meeting, and those discussions are best accommodated in contact groups. But it's expected on the Friday that we would come back together in the plenary setting to consider the outputs of the contact groups and, of course, adopt any decisions that they have put forward or proposed. There's also an opportunity at this meeting for side events, and the details of that will be published on the website shortly. So meeting documents are currently being prepared on the basis of all the work that's ongoing intersessionally. These documents will be made available from the 23rd of April, so 2 months before the meeting. Now, turning to the agenda items, I'll just run through what's expected in terms of the technical substance of the meeting. So as mentioned, there's really a division of issues, mainly between strategic, technical, and legal matters, although we also have some topics that are covered under international cooperation and coordination. So firstly, strategic matters is the opportunity for parties to consider discussions ongoing on the prior informed consent procedure and how to improve its function. Basically, a report was submitted to last COP on this issue, and from that report and recommendations, there has been a number of different streams of work ongoing. This is an opportunity for the open-ended working group to hear updates and to further discuss particular avenues of that work. Technical matters is always really the lion's share of the work at open-ended working group, particularly the technical guidelines, which you'll be aware really supplement the provisions of the convention and provide further detail, particularly on the environmentally sound management of different waste streams under the convention. So you can see here we expect further work to be done on our persistent organic pollutants or POPs technical guidelines. This is really to update those guidelines and develop new guidelines on the basis of chemicals that have been listed under the Stockholm Convention. There'll be additional work done on e-waste guidelines. These guidelines were already adopted previously, but there's been work ongoing to test and pilot these guidelines, and they would be updated according to the experiences that countries have in implementing those guidelines. And then some additional specific waste streams for which guidelines are being developed or updated. And this includes lead acid batteries and other types of batteries, tires, and mercury. And in particular, the mercury guidelines are updated to reflect what took place at the last Minamata COP, which Monica has already covered. Other technical matters, as is usual, we would look at national reporting, any changes to the reporting, format. Thank you, Juliet. Format and its associated guidance. In particular, of interest is discussion taking place on plastic waste. Of course, we're aware that the INC process goes on, and this is an opportunity for parties to consider the work that's already been undertaken under Basel, particularly the plastic waste amendments, and if there's any supplementary work that they would like to initiate under the Basel Convention on plastic waste. A new item on the open-ended working group work program is that of used textiles and textile waste. So those at COP will be aware that this discussion was initiated with some wishing to look at what action could be taken under the Basel Convention to address the issue of used textile and textile waste. A report has been prepared by the Secretariat on the basis of feedback we received from parties and observers, and will be presented at open-ended working group, and parties will be given an opportunity to consider and decide what recommendations they might wish to make to COP with respect to this work. Moving now, I'll just touch briefly on legal matters. We have a standing item there, which is providing further legal clarity, and really this looks at amendments to the annexes to the convention. Annex 4 to the convention was amended and agreed to by last COP. So there will be an opportunity to look at the implications associated with this, and then further discussions with regard to amendments to annexes 1 and 3 of the convention. Lastly, we have international cooperation and coordination. So these are really the supportive mechanisms for implementation of the Basel Convention. Firstly, the partnership program will consider 3 different partnerships. Firstly, the partnership for action on computing equipment, well, the second iteration of that partnership, I should say. They have been developing some cooling and heating guidance that will be considered and further progressed. In addition, there's the household waste partnership and plastic waste partnerships under the convention. There's an opportunity to consider the work they've been doing intersessionally and provide guidance there. And then in terms of cooperation with other international organizations, we have a standing item on cooperation with the World Customs Organization, which is really to harmonize the Basel waste and associated codes with the harmonized system codes. So that is really work that is ongoing. And a new item that is appearing again on the agenda is on cooperation with the International Maritime Organization, and that's specifically on the matter of ship recycling. Now there is a new convention that has entered into force, the Hong Kong Convention, and how the interplay will be between that convention and the Basel Convention going forward. So that brings me to the end of the presentation, but that gives you really a taste of what's to come in June. I think it's quite important that there's plenty of time to study the documents that as I've mentioned, will be placed on the website in April so that parties can come ready to get into those deep discussions during plenary and contact group sessions. And we look forward to welcoming you in June. Thank you. Over to you, Rolf.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. And as mentioned by Suzanne, all the details are on the websites, and we are there to provide you with the information that you need to prepare for this very important meeting. I now have the pleasure of inviting Kay Williams, who's the head of the Global Framework on Chemicals. And as you probably heard, we have a big meeting as well this year, which is going to be the first international conference. And I invite Kay to present to us the preparations for this meeting. Thank you. Over to you, Kay.
Thank you very much, Rolf, and thank you very much to the Gen for organising this briefing. Excellencies, delegates, colleagues. Delighted now to bring you some information about what will be a very important year for the Global Framework on Chemicals. We are one of the more recent agreements to have been adopted in 2023 in Bonn after also some difficult negotiations, but we managed to get a very structured framework with 5 strategic objectives and 28 targets, and we've been working very hard to move these forward, and the focus has been on implementation. So in terms of, oops, I've gone wrong. Sorry. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, in terms of 2026, we've got a very busy agenda. Part of our work, as we're saying, is focused on implementations. We're investing heavily in our focal points. We're a multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder framework, so we have focal points in the private sector, in civil society, as well as at the national level. We also work across different sectors such as the health and labour. So we have alternate focal points that are represented there. And we're doing a lot of work on training and induction for those new focal points that have been appointed. We're doing a lot of work on measurability and indicators, and this is a key aspect that has been moving forward since adoption of the framework, trying to decide on a suite to be able to assess the progress that we're making, because many of our targets will be concluded in 2030, and it's a very important time that we understand how we're progressing in the different areas across the framework. We have two funds that are very important to us. One is the Global Framework on Chemicals Fund, a trust fund set up under the framework, but we also work very closely with the special program, which was set up under UNEA, and which also serves all of the conventions where we again liaise very closely to, and we have those board meetings coming up in March. We have a number of webinars towards the middle of the year and the end of the year in preparation for the conference, so please do keep your eyes out for that. And we will also be making some decisions, or the board will be making some decisions on the second round of funding for the Global Chemicals Fund. Implementation is the word of our framework, and we have mechanisms that support the implementation. They're called implementation programs. This is a key track for the framework, and we've been working extremely closely with the Interorganisation Programme for the Sound Management of Chemicals, the IOMC, who have been really showing great leadership in bringing forward 2 key global implementation programs, one on legal frameworks and institutional capacities for chemical management, and the second where we've been working with the economic and industry sectors. So under the second implementation program, we have been engaging new stakeholders to the framework, specifically on textiles, electronics, building construction, and healthcare. And these programs are currently being developed. We're doing the activities as well as developing the programs. So this is a very exciting area to be looking out for, and there will be opportunities at the end of this presentation. If you wish to engage, I'll share some links with you. Health and labour are very, very important parts of our framework, as well as the environment. So on the health side, we really are reinforcing the health mandates in different countries and linking chemicals management to disease prevention and exposure control. Not everyone appreciates the linkages between the chemicals and the health in some of our institutions. So it's really important that we have that collaboration and coordination at the national level. For labour, the next few years are very important in terms of the international labour sector. We have negotiations of a chemicals protocol that is ongoing, and that's going to be extremely important, I think, for our framework to understand how we manage the chemicals through occupational health and safety. I've touched on the fund. In 2023, a chemicals fund was set up, and we have around $28 million in that fund. We've made it operational, and last year there was an initial call for funding. 4 regional projects have been approved, working across 11 countries in Latin America and Africa. The second round of applications has also been concluded, and we've adapted the approach to focus on concepts first, and we had over 130 eligible concept notes coming in, and the team is working very hard to prepare those concept notes for an executive board meeting in March, and a decision on the second round of projects will be happening towards the end of the year. These are the approved projects. As you can see, we're looking at projects where we can demonstrate regional coordination and collaboration so that we can enhance the impact of what we're doing. We're working closely with the special program, which focuses very much maybe on smaller national projects and strengthening the institutions. And we're building on the work that's been done through those projects to move to a regional level. And these are the ones that were awarded last year. And please note that some of our funds can go directly to civil society organizations to be able to coordinate different countries on that regional level. The special program, as I say, is very important to us because it does help provide the foundations for the institutional strengthening that is a key component of our first implementation program 1. Without having strong regulation and national chemicals management systems, product regulation, there are different ways that we can achieve chemicals management nationally, then it's very difficult to ensure that we have the safe and sustainable management of chemicals. So again, the special program is now realizing and achieving some good results, having completed 8 rounds of applications and 91 approved projects in 75 countries. So for us, the first international conference is absolutely key. We're extremely excited about it. It's going to happen between the 16th and 20th of November here in Geneva, where we're able to optimize, I think, on the synergies that we have with the BRS colleagues, with Rolf and Monica in Minamata. We do work really closely. And of course, there is a very important synergy with the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution. So this is where we're going to be. The focus will be on tracking progress. How well are we doing against the 28 targets that were agreed and our 5 strategic objectives? We will try to give some assessment of whether we think we are on track. We have to deliver most of these targets by 2030, a couple by 2035. And it's really important we understand whether we're in the right direction. And then following that understanding of where we are, we hope to accelerate action in key areas and do some prioritization and try and encourage those partnerships and connections to make sure that we can move forward at pace in this very important area. And then finally, we're looking at where we need to increase investment. One of our new stakeholder groups is the finance sector. We're working with investors, we're working with the banks, we're trying to mobilize the resources and make sure that these investments are happening in the right areas to transform the industries that the investors work with. So in terms of our outcomes, what will be very important will be the adoption of the indicators under the measurability framework. If you are interested in engaging, please do engage now in the intersessional open-ended working group on measurability and indicators with a meeting that will be happening towards the end of March. We will be looking at our actions and agreeing terms of reference for implementation programs, looking at new and existing issues of concern. Again, if there is an issue of concern that that you think needs addressing and could be addressed by a framework, there is an application process online and the deadline is the end of May. And we also will be looking at how to increase, have industry increase investment in itself across sectors, textiles, electronics, building construction and healthcare. So why does this matter? Because after 3 years of adoption, we are now at a critical moment to identify the gaps and mobilize action. The global community agreed that we need to have such a framework that allows the different players to come together. It is voluntary, but that voluntary nature of the framework does allow us to do things in a more innovative way, and we are very open to new approaches and new ideas and would welcome those as we come into the lead up to the conference. So why you should engage is if you're interested in shaping the global agenda, please do come. If you want to showcase innovation and in your area expertise, there'll be opportunities to do that. If you want to build cross-sectoral and global partnerships, we have many different players from different areas that are present, including at a high level. So if you want to invest, do come along. If you want to align action for a planet free of harm, please come along. And if you're interested in the progress towards the foundations of future regulations, ours is the place where we are guiding countries to develop those national chemicals management systems. And as we work very collaboratively and cooperatively, there are a number of ways that you can join in. There are some links in the presentation which will be shared. So again, if you're concerned about legislative frameworks and policies, there's activity happening on that aspect. If you want to join different partnerships and share knowledge in various sectors, please do apply. And then also, if you're interested in any updates on the work we're doing, we also have newsletters. And of course, we would like to thank all of those that do contribute to our framework. Without these contributions and pledges, we would not be able to continue with the work that we do. And we're extremely grateful for all the contributions that have come in to date. It's a very important aspect as we move forward to concluding the implementation of the targets. So thank you very much. Back to you, Rolf.
Thank you very much, Kay, for this detailed and very intense year ahead for you. So let's hope we have a very successful international conference in November. Now we'll move on to another topic, which is antimicrobial resistance. And there's a 5th high-level ministerial conference coming up, and we have Alziba Echeverry, who's in UNEP, to present the details for this meeting.
Thank you, Rolf. Thank you, Diana and the Gen team for inviting me to be here, and thank you all for attending this meeting, this briefing today. I will be speaking about the environmental dimensions of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, and why environmental action is essential in the global response, including the political momentum. AMR occurs when microorganisms, bacteria, virus, fungi, parasites, don't respond to agents that were created or designed to kill them, the antimicrobials. And this is because they develop resistance to them. AMR is recognized as one of the top 10 global public health threats, with projections indicating that if no action is taken by 2050, we will have 3 deaths per minute. It has a devastating impact, not only on human health, but also on economic development, livestock production, food security, and environmental sustainability. Because although AMR is often discussed in the context of human health or agriculture, it's important to emphasize that AMR is a global threat that cuts across all sectors. The environment plays a key role in the development, the transmission, and the spread of AMR. When antimicrobials or resistant microorganisms or even genes are released into the environment, they can select for other resistant microorganisms and can spread, increasing the burden. And while the understanding of the significance and the contribution to AMR is still evolving, we already have enough knowledge to act and tackle AMR, having the environment as a core part of the solution and reduce the risks. Over the last decade, we have seen significant global momentum, from the Global Action Plan on AMR that was adopted in 2015 to more recently the UN General Assembly Political Declaration in 2024. There, global leaders committed to a clear set of targets and actions to tackle AMR. And the political declaration recognizes that the response to AMR requires a combination of multi-sectoral and sector-specific actions, the latter including the environment. UNEA 7 last December adopted also a resolution on the environmental dimensions of AMR. All of these reflect a strong, sustained political commitment to tackling AMR across all sectors. On that view and in that spirit, FAO, UNEP, WHO, and WOHA, the World Organization for Animal Health, the quadripartite, building on its own mandate, joined forces, and we work together, being the central coordinating mechanism for the multisectoral response to AMR. Together, we support the global governance architecture on AMR and work across key technical streams, including awareness raising, legislation, support to regulators, research, integrated surveillance, or economics on AMR. This integrated One Health approach ensures the coherence and alignment between human, animal, plant, and environmental sectors. When looking at sector-specific actions, obviously UNEP plays the leading role in addressing AMR in the environment. Our work focuses on 4 main areas based on the call to action from the report released in 2023 on the matter: strengthening the environmental governance, planning, and regulatory frameworks, promoting evidence and knowledge generation and sharing to support policy and action, raising awareness of environmental AMR risks, and scaling up preventative actions in key value chains that are key drivers of AMR in the environment, which are pharmaceutical manufacturing, animal production, crop production, healthcare facilities, and it's not a value chain, but an important element is the households or municipal systems. In December last year, as I briefly mentioned earlier, UNEA 7 adopted the resolution on environmental dimensions of AMR, which gives UNEP a strong mandate to deepen this work and support countries in translating global guidance into national action. For all this traction, the ministerial high-level meetings on AMR have been instrumental in maintaining the political momentum. Following the first two, hosted by the Netherlands, with outcomes that included, for instance, the establishment of the AMR Multi-Partner Trust Fund, an important multi-sectoral financing instrument for strengthening country-level action on AMR. Oman hosted the third one, having the Muscat Manifesto, and we saw renewed commitment at the fourth ministerial in Jeddah in 2024. The next major milestone, like Rolf was mentioning, is the fifth ministerial high-level meeting, which will take place in Abuja, Nigeria, end of June this year, under the theme One Health, Advancing Global AMR Commitments Through Local Action. At this meeting, among other things, it is expected to have a roundtable to leverage and replenish the AMR MPTF, and the establishment of the Independent Panel on Evidence for Action Against AMR, IPEA. Both were part of the mandates given by the United Nations General Assembly. And this will be a critical opportunity to reinforce this multi-sectoral implementation on the ground and elevate the environmental dimensions of AMR. Thank you. Over to you, Coral.
Thank you very, very much, Aidziba. And now I have the pleasure to invite Juliette Koha, who's the Chief of the Governance Branch in the BRS Secretariat, to present on updates of the BRS conventions. Juliette, over to you.
Thank you, Rolf, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to provide you with some information on what is going to happen in the next 6 months under the conventions, and of course, not duplicating the information provided by Susan on the OEWG 15 meeting. So already you heard from Rolf that we will be having our next meetings of the conferences of the parties in 2027. This will be in Panama City from the 19th to the 30th of April. It will be the 18th meeting for the Basel Convention COP and the 13th meetings for the Rotterdam and Stockholm Convention COPs. There will be, as usual, a preparatory meetings the day before, so on the 18th of April. This time, there is no high-level segment, which is in line with usual practice. We usually have an HLS every 4 years. We have the names of the 3 presidents here on the slide. So for the Basel COP, it is Mr. Nawaf Bilassi from Saudi Arabia. For the Rotterdam COP, it's Ms. Maria Ines Esquivel from Panama. And for the Stockholm Convention COP, Mr. Joshua Audu from Cameroon. There will be regional preparatory meetings, which we are already planning. These would take place about in March 2027, about a month but before the COPs, when all working documents are made available. Should you be interested in hosting one of the RPMs, please let us know by the 31st of March 2026. The planning towards the COPs includes, of course, the bureau meetings. So the 3 COP bureaus will be meeting. They will be meeting once individually and once jointly. So the individual meetings will take place between May and July this year. And you have the dates here on the slide, starting with Stockholm, followed by Rotterdam, back to back. And then we'll have the BC COP Bureau meeting a bit later, actually just after the OEWG 15. So the Bureau can also reflect on the outcomes of that meeting to plan the work during the COPs. For the individual Bureau meetings, it will take place online. The joint Bureau meeting, which will be in the fall, in November, 23rd November, will be face-to-face. What will the bureaus look at? Well, the usual items, the organization of work for the 3 COPs, the theme for the meetings, facilitating the process for putting forward nominations for elections during the COPs, guiding the preparations for the regional prep meetings. They will hear feedback and updates on our fundraising efforts, and the bureaus will also agree on the approach they wish to take for reviewing the credentials put forward by parties during the COPs. And now a couple words about intersessional work. As Rolf mentioned, as our others, we are going through a lot of work in 2026 with meetings of our standing subsidiary bodies. This includes the 3 compliance committees you already heard about and the standing scientific and technical bodies. And then I'll say a few words about other intersessional work, and we'll finish with information on technical assistance activities. But starting with the compliance committees, I think you already heard that the 3 of them will be meeting in Geneva back-to-back in June. The Basel Convention Implementation and Compliance Committee will meet for its 17th time. So this is it has been there for quite a while, and the work continues. I wanted to flag the deadlines for registration, and these are the same for the 3 committees, and we've also aligned with OAWG 15, so keep an eye on the 2nd of March being the deadline for members to register. For observers, you have a bit more time. It's the 8th of May 2026. On the agenda of the BC ICC 17 will be 2 main tracks of work. First of all, work to assist individual parties better implement and restore compliance with their obligations under the Convention. The ICC has before it 23 specific submissions. 2 submissions come directly from parties, they're self-submissions, and 21 submissions came from the secretariats and are about challenges with the transmission of national reports. Under the second track of work of the committee, which is the review of general issues of compliance and implementation, the ICC here is guided by the work program that was adopted by the COP and looking at ways to better, for parties to better implement their obligations in relation to the transmission of national reports, preventing and combating illegal traffic, developing national legislation, implementing the prior informed consent procedure, designating country contacts, and then there's a bit of a catch-all for the committee to look at generally improving the implementation and compliance with obligations under the Convention. This includes, for example, reviewing guidance that has been adopted over time, making sure it is still fit for purpose and technically updated as needed. The committee also has on its work program to continue cooperating with the Rotterdam Convention Compliance Committee and to initiate cooperation with the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee that was just established. Now turning to the Rotterdam Compliance Committee, it will be its 4th meeting, back-to-back with the ICC. Also 2 tracks of work, specific submissions and review of systemic issues of general compliance. Also, like the ICC, following to implement the work program adopted by the COP in terms of areas of concentration, the committee will be looking at improving parties' work and implementation in relation to laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and other measures to implement the Rotterdam Convention, the notification of final regulatory actions, FRAs, exports and imports of chemicals listed in Annex 3, information exchange under the Convention, and then mirroring the mandate of the ICC to look at cooperating with the compliance committees under Basel and the Stockholm Convention. I wish to flag an important deadline because the committees, both Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm, they really rely on information transmitted by parties and sometimes other stakeholders to ground their work, in reality and the current level of implementation, the challenges faced by parties. And so questionnaires out there to collect information from parties to the Rotterdam Convention. The deadline is the 31st of March 2026. Thanking you in advance for taking the time to inform the work of the committee. And then the third meeting of the compliance committees will be that of the Stockholm Convention Compliance Committee, which, as I just mentioned, was just established at the 2029-2025 COPs. This is when the first cohort of members were elected. The committee already had a first online meeting back in November, kind of setting the scene. This second meeting will be a face-to-face meeting for the first time. And I would like to say that the committee will then really look at the issues to develop recommendations for consideration by COP13. Under the track of work on specific submissions, we may expect up to 2 issues to be considered by the compliance committee in relation to the lack of designation of country contacts. Maybe these 2 issues will be resolved by the time of the meeting. If not, the committee will see how it can help the 2 parties concerned. Under the systemic issues of general compliance and implementation, the committee, again, looking at the work program adopted by the COP, is looking at improving parties' designation of country contacts, the transmission of national reports, transmission and updating as needed national implementation plans, development of national measures, and adoption of other legislation and other measures to implement the convention, more specifically, progress towards eliminating or restricting persistent organic pollutants. The committee will also look at the 2 provisions in the convention about technical assistance and financial resources. And finally, mirroring again the work program of the Basel Committee and the Rotterdam Committee, there will be activities to cooperate with those 2 committees. As the last committee who was born, I'm sure the Stockholm committee will be eager to learn from the Basel and the Rotterdam committees. And it's really a way to increase efficiency and learn from other committees that are doing very similar work, in particular when the challenges faced by parties are of a similar nature. So again, I have to flag this questionnaire because we have to publicize it as much as possible. 2 questionnaires are out there, one that was sent to parties, and the other one was sent to entities with a mandate to support parties with the implementation of the Stockholm Convention. This includes the GEF, the 18 implementing agencies of the GEF, but also the Stockholm Convention regional centers and other entities of the UN system, for example, UNITAR, WHO, as well as the OECD. There's a deadline set for the 2nd of March to come back to the committee with your information. And the information received is, again, like under the Rotterdam Convention, critical for the committees to deliver on their mandate in an informed manner. Turning to the 2 scientific technical committees, so Chemical Review Committee, CRC 22, will be meeting in September. So this is for the Rotterdam Convention. The committee will be meeting in Rome, as is usual practice, back to back with POPROC 22. On the agenda, the main items are as follows. First of all, following the recommendation by the CRC at the 21st meeting to list methylparathion in Annex 3, the CRC is moving to the next step, which is to develop a draft decision guidance document. And then the committee has a heavy workload to review FRAs as notified by parties. There is 8 new chemicals whose FRAs will be considered by the CRC, and 6 returning chemicals for which FRAs will also be reviewed. So here's the list of chemicals. I'll skip on that. The final meeting dates, the agenda, and the tentative schedule will be approved by the CRC Bureau. This will take place after the 1st of May when there's the rotation of membership and when the new chair, which is only now incoming interim chair, will take up his role, Mr. Stephen Sangster from Belize. Now turning to the POPROC 22 meeting will be held back to back with the CRC 22 meeting, again in Rome. And here's a list of the main agenda items, namely looking at the development of the draft risk profile for PBDD PBFs and PBCDDFs. Following up on the report on POPs in stockpiles, products and articles in use and in waste, this report was considered by COP12, and there is follow-up work to that. And then POPROC will continue with its mandate to continue to evaluate the continued need for PFOS, its salt, and PFOS for acceptable purposes and specific exemptions. It will review the specific exemption for the use of PFOI in the production of PFOB for pharmaceutical products, and it will review the indicative lists of PFOA, its salt, and PFOA-related compounds, and PFHXS, its salts, and PFHXS-related compounds. Any new proposal for listing a chemical in Annex A, B, and/or C to the Convention has to be received by the 21st of April 2026 for it to be reviewed by POPROC 22. The provisional agenda for the meeting will be available by the 21st of June 2026. Now, turning to the intersessional work and meeting of ad hoc subsidiary bodies, there are quite a few, and I will just flag them. Once you receive the slide, you will see more details, and you can also go to our website to have more information. But work under the Basel Convention has been taking on regarding the review of Annexes 1 and 3 to the Convention, improving the functioning of the PIC procedure, development of technical guidelines on waste batteries and on waste tires. And the most recent meeting was of PACE 2, which we already heard about. Looking ahead, we will have the 10th meeting of ENFORCE, which is one of the partnerships under the Basel Convention. ENFORCE is the Environmental Network for Optimizing Regulatory Compliance on Illegal Traffic. And the 10th meeting just ahead of us is in April in Austria. Turning to the Rotterdam Convention, there is currently a call for information for parties and observers to transmit information under the decision on enhancing the effectiveness of the Rotterdam Convention. This call is open-ended. It is about resources and tools to support implementing the effective best practice and chemical management systems and experiences in using these resources and tools, and also on the Rotterdam Convention provisions that may be relevant for quality standards in the area of agriculture and food production. The information will be compiled for consideration by COP13 and will be made available on our website. A meeting of relevance to this issue of enhancing the effectiveness of the Rotterdam Convention is the 18th FAO-WHO Joint Meeting on Pesticide Management, which took place in October 2025. It is referred to in the decision RC 12.5, and the Secretariat participated as an observer. Finally, turning to the Stockholm Convention. So we heard already that the sixth cycle of national reports. This is now the time for parties to work on these reports, and the deadline is the 31st of August 2026. In terms of meetings, we had the BAT and BET expert group. It met once in November 2025. It will meet again normally, hopefully in June 2026. The SIWG on PCBs also met once in December 2025 and is expected to meet again in June 2026. The DDT expert group, which is reviewing progress by parties that are registered in the DDT register, scheduled to meet in May in Geneva. And then there's work ongoing on the POPs Global Monitoring Plan, GMP. The regional organization groups and the global coordination group will be meeting to finalize the 4th regional work reports from the 5th to the 9th of October 2026. I have then a couple slides on technical assistance activities, just to note that past activities under Basel have focused mainly on plastic waste, a lot of activities, but also activities on e-waste. Under the So these activities on plastic waste are either done by the Secretariat directly or under the Plastic Waste Partnership or by regional centers making use of the small grants program. Under the Rotterdam Convention, there's been a sub-regional workshop for the Pacific SIDS, work also on a series of projects at the national level to help parties establish national registration systems for industrial chemicals and to develop national action plans. And then a series of online trainings for DNAs. A couple took place in 2025, and there is more to come in 2026. Under the Stockholm Convention, work has focused on PCB's management with pilot projects, online trainings and webinars, and also a series of webinars on the GMP data warehouse and POPs data availability. Our technical assistance program also provides for joint activities of interest to two or more of the conventions. We call them synergies, TA activities. So we've had some work in Armenia, Yerevan, to support the enforcement of the BRS Convention, and this was done in partnership with Green Customs. And we've also worked with WCO, again, on enforcement issues in support of Demeter 11. Looking ahead, on these slides, you have a range of activities. These will look at, of course, some more plastic waste work, but also e-waste, also the traceability and transparency in relation to chemicals in plastics, specific regional workshop on improving reporting under Basel and Stockholm Convention, very timely due to the deadlines for transmitted reports under both conventions. We'll have a sub-regional training for negotiators for Anglophone Africa, back-to-back with a sub-regional workshop on science to action. Also, sub-regional workshop to strengthen implementation of the Rotterdam Convention and trade control measures in Caribbean small SIDS, and a national training on the enforcement of the Basel Convention and the plastic waste amendments. And this completes my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to all this. And I hand over to you, Rolf.
Thank you, Juliet, for this exhaustive list of meetings from BRS. And I would like to invite Eloise Tooney, who's the Program Management Officer of the Chemicals and Health Branch in UNEP, to give us some updates on UNEP Chemicals and Health Branch.
Thank you very much, Rolf. I hope everyone can hear me clearly and see me. As Rolf said, my name is Eloise Tooney. I'm a Program Management Officer in the Chemicals and Health Branch. And I'm going to give today a brief update on the work of the Global Environment Facility Chemicals and Waste unit of the branch. I'm going to give a little oversight of our support to the conventions, for which the GEF is the financing mechanism, and then mention some of the results that we had in the last year, since it's the end of year period. We're collecting all of our reporting together. Next slide, please. So, as the financing mechanism for the Stockholm Minamata Conventions and the Global Framework on Chemicals, the GEF funds a large number of kind of technical projects, which our unit also delivers, going from DDT, PCB, PFAS, mercury in gold mining, mercury in products, and it's a very large portfolio. I'm not going to go so much into the technical projects that we have today, but I will obviously be available to answer any questions or follow up with anyone about those. The UNEP Chemicals and Waste GEF team particularly provides cross-cutting support to the Stockholm and Minamata Conventions and their secretariats, and to the Global Framework on Chemicals, including on some of the underlying obligations of the conventions that Monica and Kay and the colleagues have all referred to this morning. UNEP is one of the few implementing agencies that is still delivering enabling activities under the Stockholm and Minamata Conventions. We currently have 39 active projects for national implementation plans under Stockholm Convention, 2 of which were submitted in 2025, 3 or 4 the year before. As you know, the Stockholm Convention requires regular NIP updates as chemicals get listed to the convention. So we have quite a large portfolio of those projects, and we are, still adding new projects in 2026. Under the Minamata Convention, we have still 6 active MIA, Minamata Initial Assessment projects. 2 MIAs and 1 National Action Plan for artisanal and small-scale gold mining were submitted last year. And we are currently preparing for the new RIAs, which are the review of implementation of Article 7 of the Minamata Convention, which we will be launching hopefully in 2026 in 20 countries. So the enabling activities are critical for countries and also for the GEF agencies to be able to direct the funding in line with the national priorities as they're expressed in the NIPs or the MIAs. We also support the effectiveness evaluation of the Stockholm Convention through the Global Chemicals Monitoring the GMP, the Global Monitoring Programme, the second phase of which concluded in 2025. It directed GEF resources to support monitoring of water, air and breast milk in 42 countries where there are significant data gaps. The evaluation of that programme is being finalized, and we look forward to seeing the results of it. The preliminary results were already used as we have developed and are in the process of seeking approval for the next phase of the GMP. We've called it Global Chemicals Monitoring Programme because, as Monica mentioned in her opening, in this phase, we will also be adding mercury monitoring, which would be a significant increase in, the scientific and technical work of the programme. Finally, our support to the Global Framework on Chemicals. We concluded a long-standing GEF 6 phase project in 2025. That project established a knowledge management platform and communities of practice for the then SICAM, now GFC stakeholders. And it also delivered technical results on lead in paint. We had, I think, 43 countries banned lead in paint. We worked with 86 companies who adopted chemical management practices and best practices in their companies. Those projects were in the construction sector, toys sector, and electronics sector. In the new phase of the Global Framework on Chemicals, our team is supporting also the implementation programs for industry and economic sectors that Kay mentioned. They bring together multi-stakeholder action on chemicals in value chains and map very well to the way some of the programs and projects that the GEF Chemicals and Waste team has initiated over the last few years. One example being a GEF 7 program entitled Financing Agrochemical Reduction and Management, which is targeting POPs and highly hazardous pesticides in direct support of the HHP Alliance under the Global Framework on Chemicals. And we also have value chain approaches for other sectors like the textiles, and the construction sector. Next slide, please. The chart on the left shows the volume of the kind of breakdown of our investment, of our portfolio. We have mapped it to the high impact sectors that UNEP's economy and industry and economy division has focused its work on in the new medium-term strategy. And it shows that between GEF7, which is the paler blue bars, and GEF8, in general, we reoriented a lot of our portfolio towards the high impact sectors, which are including mining, textiles, and electronics. UNEP's mining high impact sector is supported by the Planet Gold program, which has been working since 2018, now present in 27 countries. The evaluation, the program has been delivered in 3 kind of different phases, and we completed the evaluation of the first phase in 2025, which concluded that almost 14,000 artisanal and small-scale gold miners were supported over the years. 17 new financial mechanisms or financial products were able to channel more than $1.7 million to artisanal and individual small-scale miners, who produced almost 1.5 tons of responsible and mercury-free gold, which directly led to a reduction of almost 38 tons of mercury. So that evaluation points to promising results and has also highlighted some areas to increase focus on, especially the financing and the formalization for processes, which we are building into the new phases of the Planet Gold program. We have a project on the textile sector in a regional project in Asia, which started in 2020. It has already conducted chemical inventories in over 150 mills to set a baseline of chemical use, and started a PFAS substitution pilot in Indonesia. In Pakistan, we cooperated with ILO's Better Work program to fund chemical risk reduction action plans in 10 mills. And ILO and the Pakistan Industrial Association has expanded that pilot to over 100 mills and SMEs already. And the work on textiles has directly led into the new integrated GEF8 integrated program on eliminating hazardous chemicals from supply chains. This program focuses on fashion and construction value chains, and we are co-implementing it together with UNIDO, FAO, and UNDP. That program has a very ambitious target of avoiding over 18,000 tons of hazardous chemicals, and was launched, the 8 country projects all launched last year in 2025. So we are looking forward to taking that work forward in very close collaboration with the GFC partners and the GFC implementation program, which has the same name. I think we have to find a way to distinguish them. Next slide, please. I just wanted to also quickly mention the fact that we're in a bit of a transition moment this quarter, with UNEP's new medium-term strategy and program of work for 2026 and 2027 being finalized. We have also reviewed the previous program of work, which showed the GEF projects contribute significantly to the program of work targets, and particularly in the indicator 4, which is in reduction in releases of pollutants to the environment. That indicator aligns very closely with the GEF core indicator 9 on tons of chemicals disposed or prevented. And looking forward to the next program of work and the MTS, and bearing in mind the new programmatic approaches and the value chain approaches we're adopting with the GEF programs on electronics, on textiles, on mining, we are looking forward to having much larger numbers in the targets as we seek to make more kind of strategic industry-wide changes rather than individual disposal projects, which is how we've been working in the last program of work. It's also the moment you probably are aware of the GEF 9 replenishment. So the GEF 9 period, replenishment period will start in July 2026. So from the GEF Chemicals and Waste team, we are working on a strategy to how to prioritize the projects that we will be submitting. And we're consulting widely with partners and especially with countries to hear their priorities on the next GEF replenishment period. So please, on the last slide, please, is my email contact, and I look forward to hearing from any of the countries gathered today for any further information or to discuss possibilities for the GEF 9 period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eloise. We now have 2 more presentations left, and then we will be taking some questions and providing answers. So let's move on. Updates from the Minamata Convention on Mercury by Brenda Koek, Senior Coordination Officer of the Minamata Convention Secretariat. Brenda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Rolf, and thank you for inviting us today to give an update from our Minamata COP. So I will complement much of the information that was already presented by Monica in her opening remarks. Okay, so of course our COP was just recently held from the 3rd to the 7th of November here in Geneva, and it was presided over by Osvaldo Alvarez Perez from Chile. So he has been a popular chair and president here in the Geneva context over the last several months. And this slide just gives a little extended overview of some of the numbers related to our COP that I won't go over in much detail, but I just wanted to highlight that we were represented here in Geneva by 135 of our 153 parties. And also that the top picture on there is a representation of the team that supported our COP. And the Minamata Convention, of course, is a very small team, and we really benefited from support from BRS staff, GFC staff, and chemicals branch staff support to help deliver our COP, and it was very much beneficial in that sense. We had many events organized, facilitating knowledge sharing and advocacy as well. And just to say that our meeting report is available on the website in English only at this stage, but the streaming remains available. That was available during the COP itself and is available in languages. So with these numbers, we have 22 decisions that were adopted at our COP. And of course, I'm not going to go through them in any level of details here, but just to say that the decisions are compiled and they are available in English only on our website. And within these 22 decisions, we do have some exciting and new work that we want to outline. And in the following slides, I'll just provide a few elements of the work ahead. Monica has already touched on a number of them, and I will just highlight a few others. And just to say that a letter was sent to our national focal points and permanent missions just this week on Monday the 9th, outlining the follow-up from COP6. And it also gives a very complete overview and framing of of what we are inviting submissions on and contributions to in follow-up to our COP. Also, just to highlight that we had our program of work and budget was adopted, Decision 22, which presented a 0 nominal growth budget for us for the 2026 to 2027 period. So I will highlight 3 decisions or 3 areas just to briefly touch on a few. And the first really is just on mercury added products. Of course, Decision 6.3 was a landmark achievement for our COP in terms of the global phase out of dental amalgam. So this is something that has been worked on for many years and was a topic that we've been reminded how difficult it was to even discuss dental amalgam in the early days of the negotiations of the Minamata Convention. And we feel it's a really big milestone achievement to strengthen measures and a milestone achievement also of our COP to get that decision advanced. I'd also highlight on Mercurian products that we did receive some mandate to advance work related to mercury added cosmetics. So this, of course, is in terms of increasing efforts, including on illegal trade. So I'm to work with Interpol and the World Customs Organization in that context, but also inviting the WHO to share lessons learned and to prepare an outline of a strategy together with the Secretariat to advance work in this area. The second area I just want to highlight is a number of mandates that came forward to strengthen our work on science and cooperation. And for the moment, we've just bundled these in 2 areas. So one on strengthening scientific cooperation and the other on cooperation across the chemicals and waste cluster. So of course, these kind of all overlap in how we describe them, but I just wanted to categorize them just to simplify a little bit. So in terms of the strengthened scientific cooperation, we were requested to undertake a scoping study on where stronger science policy linkages can be best advance implementation. And this is in Decision 619. So the work, of course, will draw upon party input, but also on scientific expertise. And we have been asked to collaborate with the International Conference on Mercury as a Global Pollutant, which of course is a strong network of scientists that will be meeting in India in October of this year. There was also the welcomed roadmap for enhancing co-benefits from implementation of the Minamata Convention and the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. In terms of cooperation across the chemicals and waste cluster, I just wanted to highlight that we've been mandated to implement joint activities and strengthen collaboration with the Global Framework on Chemicals, and we will hope to see this unfold over the course of this year and look forward to an engaged participation at the International Conference later this year. We were supported to take the step forward for formal participation in the IOMC to reinforce system-wide coherence. So this is the UN coordination group that works across agencies on chemicals coordination. And we were also requested to continue cooperation and explore ways of further strengthening our cooperation, of course, with the BRS Convention. So these are important elements in terms of strengthening science and cooperation that stretch across several of the decisions that came forward at COP6. Just also to highlight in terms of strengthening cooperation, we were requested to increase cooperation on trade, particularly with organizations such as the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, the World Customs Organization, and Interpol, and also with key observers such as the indigenous peoples. One element we also just wanted to highlight, there's several of these opportunities are also new elements of work, and it is somewhat challenging for us to fulfill these requests with our zero nominal growth budget scenario. So we are stretched, but we are finding ways to collaborate, and hopefully this will contribute to being able to follow through on these items. Finally, I just wanted to highlight national reporting, and we did report to the COP on the second short national reports this time around, but I wanted to take the opportunity to, as it's rather timely, to just indicate that we are rather proud in the Minamata Secretariat to have extremely good reporting rates. So for the second short national reports, we did have an 86% rate, which you'll see on the bottom of the screen in the half circle. And COP6 decision in this regard was focused on sustaining overall performance in this regard. And I would just note that the second full national reports were due by 31st of December 2025. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner that we are currently at a rate of 70% reporting. So it's significantly lower than our second short national reports. And as such, we are extending the deadline a little bit to include more national reports. And this will be, the deadline is the 6th of March. So we would just encourage all parties to get these reports in so that we can sustain this reporting rate, and particularly sustain this reporting rate because this information is becoming a real key for us in undertaking our first effectiveness evaluation. And this effectiveness evaluation group met for the first time face-to-face this week here in Geneva, and really was relying on the data that came forward in the previous rounds of reporting. And this will only continue, this reliance on this data. So we're really encouraging folks to come forward with this in that sense. If you have any issues with it, please do reach out to the Secretariat and we will help you log on and get through into the online reporting tool, etc. Finally, on COP6 here, just we have a number of communications outcomes that we just wanted to highlight. Please visit our website in terms of social media engagements and the daily newsletter. This will give you an overall coverage of our COP6 in summary, and we do have a lot of visuals and advocacy materials there that can support you. So just looking ahead briefly to COP7, here we I wish you to take note of the date of the 6th to 10th of September, because this date is a little bit shifted from the original date that came forward at COP6. So the date is 6 to 10 September here in Geneva. And we just wanted to share this picture here of our COP6 president, Osvaldo, passing on the kokeshi dolls that were carved by Mr. Ogata, who is a Minamata disease victim and a storyteller. And these kokeshi dolls represent a tradition within the Minamata Convention where the past president passes these dolls on to the incoming successor, serving as a reminder of the shared mission to make Mercury history. So he has passed the dolls on here to Marie-Claire Landry of France, and she is the elected president of COP7. COP7, of course, marks the 10-year anniversary of the entry into force of the Minamata Convention, and we hope that this can represent an opportunity for some celebration and acknowledgement of the progress we've made under the Minamata Convention. And a couple of key prominent reports that will come forward at that time, of course, are the effectiveness evaluation and its results. So we expect that to feature prominently at COP7. And we also see the third review of the financial mechanism and an anticipated decision on the renewal of the specific international program, one of the two components of our funding mechanism as key components in COP7 coming forward. I have one final slide here, which just outlines the road to COP7 in a lot of detail. I will not go through this, but you will have the slides and follow up. And we just really see that we have a really exciting opportunity and our program shaping up. We have a number of key groups that will be meeting, the Compliance Committee, Implementation and Compliance Committee, the Effectiveness and Evaluation Group, the Open-Ended Scientific Group will all be continuing their work. We also have the specific International Program Governing Board. And under meetings here, we have one bullet on the new open-ended group on trade and compounds, which was mandated at COP6. So in the letter that was sent to you on Monday, you will see that nominations to this group have been requested by the 31st of March of this year to move forward. Maybe just to highlight three more little program elements here that we see as very exciting that I haven't already mentioned in the other slides are on trade. Particularly, we have an additional mandate on illegal trade and working on developing strategies to prevent illegal trade, but also on guidance on the use of harmonized system codes, and those HS codes are very important for implementation reasons. We also, Monica mentioned in her opening remarks on ASGM, have a stock taking and comparative analysis study that is requested of the Secretariat, as well as a comparative analysis on supply chain transparency and certification in mercury use in gold mining. So these are really important elements because of the high price of gold that makes this particular agenda item or this particular issue really relevant at the moment with our convention. And finally, we did receive extended mandate with our digital strategy, particularly to develop the Minamata Convention Exchange platform, and as well as some exploration on the use of artificial intelligence in the within our convention. So those are some of the highlights that came out of COP6 and looking ahead to COP7. I would encourage you to really read through the letter we sent on Monday. It's a long letter, but it really outlines all aspects of COP6 implementation and where we are looking for inputs and submissions, as well as where we could use additional support within our for voluntary funds within our budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brenda. And of course, we have our last presentation, certainly not least, and that's perspective from the civil society. And we have Sarah Brochet who will be presenting that. She's science advisor of IPAN.
Thank you very much for inviting me to give some perspective on behalf of IPAN. And if I can have the next slide. IPAN is a global network of public interest civil society organizations in over 130 countries. And we have been heavily engaged in the BRS and Minamata Convention, CICEM, and now the GFC for many, many years. Next slide, please. I will get into the reflections in a minute, but I do want to just highlight some of the reasons why civil society engagement in these processes are so important. There are many more than I have put on this slide, but I could talk about this for hours and I won't. But one of the key, or three of the key items I do want to mention is that civil society contributes with citizen science, reports, highlighting issues both in countries and connecting internationally, showing issues that are global problems. And with these reports, we come to these meetings providing technical information, providing data to support the work of the conventions, the GFC, and others. A point that is not often mentioned is also the fact that civil society is a mechanism, or civil society participation is a mechanism for transparency. The more engaged we are, the more transparent processes are, and the more trust in the outcomes and the work of these processes will have. And in turn, that will mean that the more trust there is in these processes, the more effective they can be implemented, because that also means that civil society can at all levels help implement and support implementation. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, and thank you very much from all the presentations. Some of the items that I will mention has already been mentioned, but I do want to underscore a few things that we as IPAN are thinking about looking ahead, and some of the lessons learned that we have seen during previous years. First of all, we think it's important to underscore that we are in a crisis. We're in a chemicals crisis, and these are the agreements that we have in place, these and a few more, to combat and tackle that crisis. No country can mitigate these impacts by themselves. We need global policy, and this is what we have. So maximizing the use of these agreements will be vital, not only the legally binding conventions, but also the global framework on chemicals, which is the framework we have to tackle a majority of the issues that we see. So this is a really important framework for us, in addition to, of course, the important work of the conventions. Another point, or lesson learned that we're taking away from past years is the importance of decision making, and how that has to be effective to be able, so that these agreements and the work under these agreements can move forward. We saw last week, for example, that if you have any effective mechanisms to take decisions, then you can actually move forward in an organized way, as for election of the new chair of the INC, for example. So this will be critical in 2026 and onwards to have these effective mechanisms in place and utilizing them if there is no other alternative. One other point that has been touched upon by previous speakers as well is that we do have a planetary crisis, and that means that we have to take comprehensive approaches. The multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder approach is especially prominent under the global framework on chemicals, but it is also key elements to be successful in implementing the conventions and other agreements. There has to be interlinkages, and there already are some between, for example, biodiversity, by the work by ILO and occupational exposures. And I'm very happy to hear that some of these are being increased and enhanced. But it also means that we have to make sure to take these aspects into account under the work of the specifically chemicals conventions and frameworks under UNEP as well. And finally, my final point, I will be very brief, is also how do we engage and move forward with alternatives to what we see today. We see that business as usual has led us to this point. What are the alternatives? Who provides them, and how can we work with them and encourage them to be more engaged? We know that there are non-chemical alternatives that has been proven effective, that does not rely on the industries that have put us in this position today. How can we implement those non-chemical alternatives more widely? Very good examples from agroecological approaches, for example, instead of using pesticides, and there are other non-chemical alternative approaches to replace chemical uses for other purposes. With that said, we have to make sure the alternatives are also environmentally sound. We cannot rely on hopes and magical thinking. It's the old saying that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So it has to be verified. It has to be environmentally sound. But these are some of the points that we as IPAN would like to highlight in moving forward into 2026. And with that said, we're all looking forward very much to the work together with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for these few words. And as you can see, the agenda we have before us in 2026 is really, really heavy. And already some colleagues have hinted of what's going to happen in 2027. Now we move on to our question and answer session. And we have a few questions coming in. This one is about how can regional organizations better access the special program on industrial strengthening to build local technical capacity for the sound management of chemicals and waste, particularly regarding the phase out of persistent organic pollutants or POPs under the Stockholm Convention. Okay, over to you.
Thank you very much for the question. We have some very good news in relation to the special program. We've recently had a donation come in of 5 million euros to the program, which means that in fact some of the projects that were approved but for which there was no funding are now being reconsidered. And we do anticipate that there may well be some future funding rounds. So we're very excited about that news. Please do keep an eye on the website, and we'll be posting information as soon as we get it. There will be an executive board meeting happening in March. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kay. We have another question, but I don't know how relevant it is to this meeting this morning. On legal issues, we have seen in Kenya courts award waste speakers. Is that something we expect across the member states? UNEP?
Let's repeat a little because it was mixed.
On legal issues, we seen Kenya courts awarded the waste speakers. Is that something we expect across member states?
Always one very important aspect is that UNEP and the conventions are here to support, are tools for countries to implement and make decisions on what it is best for their territories and for their jurisdictions. Waste speakers is an essential area and element in our agenda, and waste needs to be seen as resources. We, as you know, always speak about circularity and how to make sense of those things that should not be wasted. So very hard to answer that question. Member states will follow as they seem it's necessary. But in the context of Basel, and I don't want to interfere with Basel, that's an essential area and aspect to deal with all the different stages of the waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. We have another question now. Is how can focal points of the ISPCWP participate in PopRock so that it can help to merge some experiences? Juliet. How can focal points of the ISP?
Thank you for the question. So the principal composition, of course, of the PopRock are the members that are elected by the parties, and so it really belongs to the COP to decide who would sit as a member of a PopRock. But the meetings are also open to observers, so there's the possibility for other representatives of parties to actually be nominated by their country to come and attend the discussions and the meeting of PopRock. So we have now the PopRock 22 meeting coming in the fall, and when we send out the invitations, we will also send out a notification to all observers to the Stockholm Convention. So I would advise that anybody who's interested in attending PopRock to consult at the national level with your counterparts that are the OCP for the Stockholm Convention, because they will be made aware of the convening of the meeting and of the opportunity for parties to designate observers to attend the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliet. We have another question now from online participants. Given the central role of science and evidence in chemicals and waste governance, how do you assess the current level of engagement of observers, civil society, and the scientific community in those negotiations? Are there plans to further strengthen and institutionalize their contributions to ensure the meaningfully informed decision-making processes? I look at you, Kay.
Thank you very much. Indeed, we welcome engagement of our scientists and academics. Everyone in our framework does have an equal voice and are able to contribute. There's no prioritization, especially at the meetings. We are considering some ideas about setting up some multidisciplinary expert groups that would include academia to help support countries. And we're looking at that concept, trying to see if we can raise some funds to make that happen. So for me, the science and evidence base is extremely important in all the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kay. And now I move on to our August table here this morning. If there are any questions from anyone who joined us this morning. Yes, Indonesia, sir. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pragus. I'm from the Indonesian mission here in Geneva. First of all, thank you very much for this very insightful chemical briefing. I think it's a very important and useful briefing, and it is held months before meeting, so it gives governments to prepare for their participation. And also I would like to thank to all of the presenters today. It's a very dense presentation. Well, but I take note a lot of them. I take note that there have been a deadlines. Also, there's a very important meetings regarding the chemical that we have in 2026. Of course, this information will be transmitted to our national focal point in Jakarta. But from the presentation, perhaps I would like to ask several questions. First is regarding the BRS open-ended working group meeting. I think the presenter mentioned about there will be 3 contact groups will be organized, and 2 of them will be held in parallel. So actually my concern is some of delegation maybe would not have a very big delegation, and having a split it a meeting might be difficult. So perhaps it can be considered if we have not a parallel meeting. Instead, have a meeting once in a time. So those countries or representative who only have very small delegation can contribute meaningfully on that meeting. And then I'll move on to the GFC. Thank you very much for the presentation. Also, I would like to inform that we already received the invitation from the from the UNEP, if I'm not mistaken, to our national focal point, inviting us to be part of the partner on the implementation of GFC. So we've been transmitted to our national focal point, and it's still under review. But I would like to seek clarification. I think regarding the programs, the presenters mentioned that there have been around 200 plus approved program from the GFC, but I think from the list, I didn't see many countries coming from the Asia Pacific region. So perhaps if I can get the clarification on why the number of the program in the Asia Pacific region is not too significant compared to the other regions. Maybe perhaps because of there have a less interested applicants, or perhaps some other reason. Perhaps if you can explain more on that. And also regarding the partners, the donors, I think from the list, I see a new added country, which is Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken, from the list that I referred to on the website. Pakistan was not there, but now it's Pakistan. So I just wondering if Pakistan is just become the member, become the partner of the GFC, and also if we can get also the access regarding the contribution of each of the donors, that would be very helpful for our consideration as well. So move on to the BRS. I'm sorry, BRS convention. Well, it's a very thorough presentation. There is a lot of dates and deadlines. I think I have to look at the list one more time. Just want to see how meeting, what kind of meeting that we're going to have here, and perhaps if the network, if Diana can also perhaps help us once again to provide like a timetable, that will be very very helpful. Yeah, on the Binamata, thank you very much for the information. Also appreciate and regarding the number of national reporting, the second full national reporting, Indonesia is also sent our full national reporting. Although the number is not as significant as the national report previously in the mid of 2025, but I think the number is quite decent for the development. Yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you very much for once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Perhaps I'll ask Susan to clarify on the first point.
Thank you very much for the question regarding the meeting of the contact groups. Well, something we do try to ensure is that there's not plenary and the contact groups meeting at the same time. So there's already a reduced overflow there, or overlap, I should say. It's quite difficult, though, to hold just one contact group at a time, just because of the limited time available during the meeting. But we do find that with OEWG, generally the technical matters contact group meets throughout. And then we try to structure the issues that are being dealt with by the other two groups accordingly, so that those who would be more likely to be interested in a particular legal or strategic matter, it's put during a time where there is less likely for there to be a crossover of interested delegates. But we are aware that this is an issue for sure for smaller delegations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Kay, you have, I think, 2 points, 2 questions there.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for making reference to the letter. Yes, indeed, we have a call out at the moment for increased partnership. In terms of the applications to the fund, we've received a number of applications, but just to clarify, we've only the board has only approved 4 regional projects in 11 countries. We've had a huge amount of interest. Not all of the applications are eligible, so we do urge all countries to look at the guidance, and the Secretariat stands ready to clarify all that guidance. The current process, as I say, there are concept notes that are currently there. I'm not currently familiar with the precise numbers that have been received from the Asia Pacific region, but it is true last year we did not have many eligible projects coming forward from the region. But I can say that we have engaged with the regional forum for the Asia Pacific region that's led by Japan and others, and we have been talking about the fund and increased our outreach. But if there's any more we can do to support applications from the Asia Pacific region, then please let us know. And then finally, indeed, Pakistan does hold the presidency of the first international conference. And yes, they have contributed. And I will look into how we can share appropriate information with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kay. Brenda, you want to add anything on Minimata? No. Okay, it was just a comment. Okay, thank you. We now have Ocean Dyer, who has been very patient, waiting for us to close the meeting. As you know, we've exhausted our time for this briefing session. So, Ocean, if you are here, okay. If you can give us some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolf. Thank you, everyone. And hello, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleague. It is a pleasure to address you today on behalf of the government of Switzerland. And as we bring this insightful webinar to a close, I would like to warmly thank the Geneva Environment Network for convening this event, as well as the speakers for clearly outlining both the progress achieved and the work that lies ahead. I really believe that these exchanges help us plan strategically and move our shared agenda forward together. I would also like to thank all participants, whether in Geneva or online. Yeah, it has been said throughout this webinar, the year 2025 has been a pivotal one for the global governance cluster on chemicals and waste. The conference of the parties to the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, as well as the Minamata Convention, adopted important decisions that bring us closer to a world aligned with the sound management of chemicals and waste. Allow me to highlight in particular the decision to phase out dental amalgam containing mercury. This long-awaited outcome was made possible by a window of opportunity that we created together, all governments, in a spirit of trust and cooperation. And let us make our shared objective to nurture that same spirit of trust and ambition in the year ahead. The year 2025 also saw the formal establishment of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemical Waste and Pollution, the ISPCWP. And like the IPCC for climate and IPBES for biodiversity, this panel aims to provide robust and policy-relevant scientific information to governments and stakeholders in general, strengthening informed decision-making. And with this third science policy interface, we have added a fundamental piece to the global response to the triple planetary crisis. As we have just concluded last week the first part of the ISPCWP's first plenary session, which was marked by challenges in operationalizing the new panel, it is important to recall why this panel matters. It is essential that we succeed in making it fully operational for the benefit of governments and all instruments within the cluster. Let us not miss this opportunity. Let us strengthen the process and move forward together. Looking ahead, 2026 will also bring progress under the Basel Convention and, of course, the first international conference of the Global Framework on Chemicals. As the successor to SAICHEM, the Global Framework on Chemicals must deliver stronger results, and to do so, we must equip ourselves with the necessary tools. The adoption of implementation programs, as it has been mentioned by Kay, and a robust measurability structure will be crucial steps. Achieving the objective of the GFC will also require the engagement of all actors, all stakeholders, governments, industry, civil society, and international organizations. Only a truly holistic participation in implementation programs, combined with a broader and more sustainable funding base, will enable our success. The political, technical, financial, and logistical strengths of the chemicals and waste governance cluster lies in collaboration and in the effective use of synergies among its instruments. My call to you today, Excellencies and dear colleagues, is therefore to further strengthen these synergies. At a time when multilateralism and the United Nations face unprecedented political and financial pressures, we must adapt and cooperate even more closely. This means maintaining strong coordination among the BRS conventions, reinforcing links with the Minamata Convention, and deepening collaboration with other instruments such as the Global Framework on Chemical, the ISPCWP, and at a point the Future Plastic Treaty. By leveraging these connections, we can enhance the effectiveness and impact of our collective actions. Geneva, as the global hub for chemicals and waste governance, plays a central role in these efforts. It hosts the Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention, the Minamata Convention, and the Global Framework on Chemicals, as well as the Chemicals and Health branch of UNEP and WHO. By maintaining a holistic perspective, strengthening existing instruments, and developing new ones where needed, we can ensure that global governance on chemicals and waste remains fit for purpose in the face of future challenges. As we conclude, let us draw inspiration from the progress achieved and from the important task that lies ahead. The sound management of chemical and waste is a journey that requires vision, cooperation, and sustained commitment. Let us foster trust, approach the challenges before us with ambition and determination. Thank you once again for your participation today and for the opportunity to close this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ocean. And as I've said before, thank you to all our participants. Thank you to Jen And of course, all the information presented today will be available to you on the website. And if you want further information, I'm sure everyone here will be very happy to provide you with more detailed information. So with those few words, once again, thank you. And this briefing session is now closed. Thank you.